One player sits and half a league vanishes. Say that out loud and tell me it doesn't sound insane. That's the WNBA's reality right now. Caitlin Clark goes down, and within days you can feel the oxygen getting sucked out of arenas and TV sets across the country. This isn't a blip. It isn't just another injury. It's the floor dropping out from under an entire business. The core news? Clark's been sidelined. First a left quad strain in late May, now a groin issue, and every metric that was roaring when she was on the court is limping without her. Ratings? Slashed. Tickets? Discounted. Buzz? Evaporating. And here's the part nobody in the league office wants to put in a press release. The numbers don't whisper, they yell. Why does this matter right now? Because the WNBA is sprinting toward a pivotal CBA negotiation at season's end, and every dollar of leverage is attached to eyeballs, attendance, and momentum. You don't walk into a contract room boasting about what used to be. You show what is. And what is, at this exact moment, is a league that cannons downhill the minute its biggest star puts on warm-ups instead of a uniform. I don't need you to take my word for it. Look at the scoreboard the networks care about. When Clark plays, the needle jumps. When she doesn't, it dips under the baseline. That's not a narrative. That's arithmetic. Let's tease what's coming, because the story gets bigger the longer you stare at it. First, the televised collapse. A 55% crater in national TV viewership the moment Clark was out, with Indiana's own games chopped by more than half. Second, the marketplace panic. Ticket prices that were sizzling on resale sites went ice cold, some falling more than 70%, and those "we moved to a bigger building for Caitlin" nights suddenly looked like a bad bet. Third, the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say into a microphone. A chunk of fans openly boycotted other games because they don't trust the officiating, the tone, or the league's protection of its star. Click confirmed, public sentiment is boiling. Here's the contrarian twist. This was avoidable, and the proof is in every metric you're about to hear, followed by the roadmap. We'll track the ratings freefall, the injury timeline and risk, the money trail, the culture clash around physicality, and the simple choices the league must make if it wants to be seen as a professional operation instead of a reality show with a scoreboard. Start with the second best point, the hard, unromantic numbers. Context: when Clark suited up, national broadcasts averaged north of 1.8 million viewers. Application: with her sidelined, that average buckled to the mid-hundreds of thousands, roughly 804 to 850K, depending on the window, an almost perfect mirror image of interest following one person. Framing: expectations versus reality. Everyone expected a dip. Nobody sane expected a cliff. And it wasn't just national windows. Indiana games themselves, which had been appointment television, slid by more than 50% without her. Pattern interrupt. Stop and replay that in your head. Remove a single rookie and the league's total audience gets cut in half. Tiger Woods once moved golf ratings. This is steeper. Jordan sitting knocked TV down a handful of points. This is a guillotine. Now the ticket counter. Context: those Clark is coming to town nights had become traveling spectacles. Teams rescheduled to larger arenas, staffers were printing extra wristbands, and dynamic pricing looked like a slot machine paying out cherries. Application: when she's out, the bottom falls out. Tickets that scraped $860 slide toward $250. Average costs for her missed games plunge from around $1,370 to roughly $80. Sticker shock in reverse. A Fever Sky rematch that previously drew 2.25 million viewers, one of the league's crown jewel ratings, sees resale prices deflate from about $210 to under $100 without Clark. Framing: you don't need a spreadsheet to get the message. Demand wasn't for the logo on the front, it was for the number on the back. Expectations said the rising tide would lift all boats. Reality says the tide was one wave, and when it pulled back, a lot of ships were sitting in mud. Here's the strongest point, and the one that decides whether this season becomes a business case study or a cautionary tale: star protection and league identity. Context: Clark isn't just talented, she's television. She's merchandise. She's a whole generation of casual viewers trying women's basketball for the first time. Application: yet the on-court climate around her has felt like an invitation to escalate. Hard fouls multiplying. Welcome to the league, plays that cross the line from tone setting to targeting. You can argue intent until the audio cuts out, but the outcomes are visible. There have been dozens of egregious hits in recent seasons. 5 of the nastiest against Clark landed just this year, and the Chicago Sky have their fingerprints on the majority of the worst ones. Framing: in pro sports, there's a difference between physical and reckless. The NBA didn't build a global empire by letting teams turn LeBron into a tackling dummy. The NFL doesn't shrug when quarterbacks get headhunted. You protect the product. Expectations say, it's just tough basketball. Reality says when your biggest draw is limping through a groin injury after a quad strain, your laissez-faire attitude looks less like old-school grit and more like organizational malpractice. Mini cliffhanger. If everyone knows you must protect the money, why didn't they? Hold that thought while we look at the injury timeline. Context. Clark, who hadn't missed a game in years, gets shelved in late May with the quad. She returns, a warrior by instinct, then the groin flares. Application. Medical logic says compensation is real. Guard one muscle, another takes the load. Rush her back and the chain reaction can turn annoying into catastrophic. Framing. The league has a temptation problem. Short-term ratings sugar, hits versus long-term health. Expectations say get her back by the next marquee matchup. Reality says if that means risking a season or a career, you just blew the budget on a scratch-off ticket. Let's widen the lens to dollars and credibility. Context. Even with the initial Clark surge, the league was projected to lose roughly $50 million this year. Application. Subtract her from the stage and those losses snowball. TV inventory underperforms, merchandise stalls, walk-up slows, and those newly curious fans sample something they don't like. A product that feels hostile to the star who attracted them. Sponsors notice. They always notice. Framing. People forget that a sport is two businesses stitched together, the game and the show. The WNBA has been trying to embrace both, leaning into viral drama while claiming the polish of professional sport, but you can't be a high school play that moonlights as Broadway. You pick a lane. Expectations say any attention is good attention. Reality says not all attention converts. Pattern interrupt. Quote break. Veteran journalist Christine Brennan put it bluntly, when one player's absence erases more than half your TV audience, the league has failed to meet the moment. That observation lands because it's not about celebrity worship, it's about organizational competence. Context. Brennan literally has a book coming on Clark and the cultural shift she catalyzed. Application. When outside watchdogs say, protect your star, it's not a culture war, it's a business memo. Framing. If the narrative reachable to the mainstream becomes they didn't protect her, fans start voting with the remote and the wallet, and some are doing exactly that. Refusing to watch other games as a protest against the officiating and the vibe. Open loop you can't ignore. What if the worst-case scenario happens? If she's pushed back too soon, the groin becomes something bigger, the season evaporates, and with it the league's lighthouse. That isn't melodrama. It's a straight line from the current data. When Clark sat earlier in the season, the entire league average nosedived to around 555,000 viewers, below last year's 670,000. One absence rewound the clock. Framing. You can't negotiate the future on rewinds. If you want the next CBA to look like growth, you have to prove you can sustain interest without grinding your biggest engine into dust. Let's talk culture, because that's where this keeps getting stuck. Context. Physical basketball has a proud history, and veterans are right to test rookies. Application. But there's a difference between tests and message, sending disguised as defense. When a first-year player leads your economic activity, by some estimates, more than a quarter of it, you don't wink and say, play on after blindside hits.